Galatians 1. We're in verse 11. But I make it known to you, brethren, that the gospel which was preached by me is not according to men. For I neither received it from men, nor was I taught it, but I came through the revelations of Jesus Christ. For you have heard of my former conduct in Judaism, how I persecuted the church of God beyond measure and tried to destroy it. And I advanced in Judaism beyond many of my contemporaries in my own nations, being more exceedingly zealous for the traditions of my father. But when I pleased God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me through his grace to reveal his Son to me, that I might preach him among the Gentiles, I did not immediately confer with flesh and blood, nor did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were apostles before me. I went to Arab and returned again to Damascus. So here's Paul, and he's actually explaining when he got hit by God, when he was Saul, and he got hit by God, and when he went blind. He's telling them, this is the way God spoke to me. He says, God opened my eyes. It wasn't no man. Nobody came and talked to me, because people were saying he's talked to the apostles, and they're the ones that convinced him of change. But he's saying, no, I didn't do that. He says, I was here. He says, I came through Judaism. He says, I was there persecuting the church. I was there killing the Christians. He was trying to destroy it, because he thought, beyond all measure, Judaism was the main thing. And the religions of Jesus Christ was wrong. The Christians were wrong. So when he went in there and he was killing them, they thought that he went and got changed by the disciples. But he revealed this all to them. He says, I haven't been out of, I haven't gone up to Jerusalem to talk to these guys, the apostles. He says, I've been here, he says, where he's been at. And he's sitting there preaching to them guys, and they're all thinking, wait a minute here. He's been converted by man. He's saying, no, I wasn't. And then he said in verse 18, he said, then after 3 years I went up to Jerusalem to see Peter, and remained with him for 15 days. But I saw no other apostles except James, the Lord's brother. Now concerning the things which I wrote to you, indeed before God I do not lie, after I went into the region of Syria and Cilicia, and I was unknown by face to the church of Judah, which were in Christ. But they were hearing only he for who formerly persecuted us, now preaching the faith which one tried to destroy, and they glorified God in me. He's there saying, he only was in Jerusalem and he saw Peter for only 15 days. Could you learn all the gospel in 15 days? You wouldn't be able to. No. He says, I met James, the Lord's brother. There's no way in that amount of time you can learn everything he did. He's saying, this was all given to me by God. It's nothing else. He says, I was struck, and that's what happened. And he told him where he went to. He went to Syria, and then he went to the church of Judah, which were in Christ. Just think, if he's walking in these churches, and what the people are thinking each time he walks in. Here's a guy that's trying to kill us. Is he in here trying to interrogate us to see who's Christian and who's not? Do I go back? Will he come back and kill us? If you start thinking about that, the most likely character being used. And he's going in preaching the gospel. You'd be scared, wouldn't you? But he said, but they find out though. They said in verse 24, and they glorified God in me. So they found out he was changed by his actions, didn't they? And then in chapter 2 he says, then after 14 years I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas, and also took Titus with me. And I went up by the revelations and communicated to them that the gospel which I preached among the Gentiles, but privately to those who were of reputation, lest by any means I might run or had run in vain. Yet not even Titus, who was with me, being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised. And this occurred because of false brethren secretly brought in, which came in by stealth and spies, our liberty, which we have in Christ, that they might bring us into bondage. So here he is. He's talking to the Gentiles and that. He's preaching to them. And the Jews are said they realized that the Jews have been in there and teaching them Judaism. And they said, well, Titus isn't circumcised. Why should it matter whether he's circumcised or not? That's the old law, isn't it? Mm-hmm. How many times do we follow that in churches? There's some churches that believe you're baptized, you're already saved. There's churches that believe that, you have to be of their church or you're not saved. I mean, I've heard people say, I've been trying to go to the right church, so I'm saved.
Wow, I've never heard that.
They've been falsely taught, haven't they?
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
you have churches that teach that you can pray somebody into heaven. Does it say that in the Bible?
No.
I mean, we have to watch what we're doing. That's what these guys are doing. They're coming in and telling these guys that you have to be this way to be saved. Paul already told them that they didn't have to. And all these guys are coming in there after him are telling him. He says, we have liberty through Christ. We have our choice, don't we? Does circumcision save us?
No.
No. It might be a good thing for sanitary stuff and like that, but it doesn't save somebody, does it?
No.
When we start putting things in front of us and say, this is what we have to do to be saved. There's churches that will say, if you don't go to our church, you can't grow.
No.
Is that what the gospel says?
No, never heard that.
It doesn't, does it? And then in verse 5 he says, to whom we did not yield submission, even for an hour, that the truth of the gospel might be continued with you. For from those who seem to be something, whatever they were, it makes no difference to me. God shows personal favoritism to no man. For those who seem to be something add nothing to me. But on the contrary, when they saw the gospel for the uncircumcised had been committed to me, as the gospel for the circumcised was to Peter, for he was working effectively in Peter for the apostle to be circumcised, also working effectively in me towards the Gentiles. And when James, Stiles, and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that had been given to me, they gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship, that we should go to the Gentiles, and they too, the circumcised. They desired only that we should remember the poor in the very things which I also eager to do. So what is Paul doing? Barnabas went and talked to the circumcised. He actually says in one spot in the gospel, he says, I act like the people I'm with, so I fit in. It doesn't mean we compromise the gospel. You don't go in another place and do the gospel the same way as you do here. You wouldn't go in the inner city and do gospel like you do here. You don't change the message, but you change the presentation on how you're doing it. It's completely different. I mean, them people, you go to an inner city church, they're dancing around and everything else when you're singing. If you saw that in our church, a lot of people would fall over. It'd probably be good to see, but it's something that wouldn't be.
Yeah.
They get all excited, which we should be. We should have that joy. So this is one of the things we have to look at. That's what Barnabas and they got circumcised to show the message. That's why they got circumcised. It was so they could fit in and show the gospel. When I'm with the teenagers, I have to act like a teenager. I can't act like an adult all the time, because if I do they accept me?
Yeah.
They don't. So you have to fit in with the group you're with. So when it comes that time, that's what these disciples are. You know, they're going in, and talking to these people, and they're being just like them, not where the gospel says they shouldn't be, but where they can be. So what are we called to do? We're called to do the same thing, aren't we? We're called to go out and give a message. And if we don't do that, then we're in trouble. I mean, this is where we have to realize it. We have most churches, there's legalism. And when legalism is in the church, what happens? You don't spread the gospel to anybody else, do you?
Yeah.
It's scary because it's so easy to fall into, because we put barriers up so people don't break the laws. But is them barriers actually what's supposed to be up?
No.
This matters what the gospel says, doesn't it? It don't matter what we think. And that's what was happening. These guys were putting in all the laws because they were raised with the laws. And Paul and them guys were coming in and saying, this isn't so. This is where we have to return to what the gospel actually says. What was taught. He was hitting the road and taught. But guess what? All the disciples were teaching the same thing. So let's go out and be the same as all them. Let's go out and teach the gospel and show the people what it's really about. Let's go to prayer.